This news program is proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Now Biscuits.
National leaders pay respect to the late Sir Rugby Namaliu. New board announced for National Higher and Technical Education. And Civic Pride takes home their first victory in the season opener of PNG NRL. A very good evening. This is National EMTV News. I'm Godwin Eki. Thank you for joining us. The casket of the late Sir Rugby Namaliu was placed at the Grand Hall at the National Parliament today for the national leaders to pay their respects. Formalities commenced at 9:30 this morning.
The casket of the late Sir Rugby Namaliu was taken to the Parliament's Grand Hall this morning as national leaders and diplomats gathered to pay their respects to a great statesman. As the fourth Prime Minister of the sovereign state of PNG and the contributions he made for this nation, people turned up to say thank you and pay their respects. The sounds from the bagpipes welcomed the late Sir Rugby as he was brought in to lie in state this morning. Present in Parliament to pay their respects were the Speaker of Parliament, Joe Pomat, Prime Minister James Marape, Deputy Prime Minister John Rosso, State Ministers, Members of Parliament and Governors, including the immediate families of the late Sir Rugby Namaliu. According to the state funeral program, the state funeral service and burial program starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the arrival of the casket of the late Sir Namaliu at the APEC House, where the service will be conducted. The program ends at around 1:35 p.m. with a 21-gun salute on the Independence Hill, where he will be laid to rest. Grace Papiali, National EMTV News.
The Chief Secretary to Government, Ivan Pomaliu, has announced today to the people of Papua New Guinea that tomorrow, Tuesday, the 18th of April 2023, is declared a public holiday in respect of the late Sir Rugby Namaliu's state funeral. Chief Secretary Pomaliu said this holiday was recently approved by the National Executive Council to give time to public servants and the general public to pay their last respects to the fourth Prime Minister of PNG. The late Sir Rugby Lankan Namaliu died of a sudden illness on Friday, 31st of March 2023 at the age of 75, leaving behind a public service, political and diplomatic legacy that is yet to be matched. His official funeral service will be held at the APEC House beginning at 8:30 tomorrow morning. At 11:30, the Sir Rugby Namaliu's casket will arrive at Independence Hill, where his burial program will be held and he will finally be laid to rest. The third day National House Cry funeral service for late Sir Rugby Namaliu was held last night at the Sir John Guy's Indoor Stadium. Governor for NCD, Powers Pakop, Member for Moresby South, Justin Tachenko, representatives from the private sector, Frank Kremer, and Governor for West New Britain Province, Sasindran Mutuvel, paid their tribute, followed by key address by the Prime Minister James Marape.
Sir John Guy's Indoor Stadium was packed with late Rugby's family members, members of parliament, dignitaries and representatives from private and public sector. At around 6:30 p.m., Dr. Reverend Jack Moa opened the funeral service with a short prayer followed by a sermon.
And consider others better than yourself.
As the co-host of last night's funeral, the governor for NCD paid tribute on behalf of the people in NCD, stating that late Sir Rugby served the country to the highest level of government and has set a benchmark for them to reach.
Being a member of parliament for last 15 years, working in and trying to live up to their shoes, those who were ahead of us or set the benchmark. I would say, without doubt, that Serabi is a leader who set the benchmark and deserves all the respect that we accord to him.
He has challenged other members of parliament to take action on the foundation that was set by the founding fathers. He questioned them whether they are serious in serving the nation or not.
It's been a life of service. And I want to say too that he used his life absolutely to the best that he can, purposefully, meaningfully, well beyond politics too. He never forgot forsaken Papua New Guinea in so many ways after he left politics in 2007.
Frank Kramer, the representative from the private sector, said late Serabi was a great man, not only in politics but also in business sectors. This was followed by tribute from Governor for West New Britain and Prime Minister James Marape with keynote address. Prime Minister Marape describes late Serabi as a man of high virtue, a noble character and high standing among them. He was a man, a father, a leader of high standard, true to his calling as a public servant to our country.
Amongst the authentic Melanesian leaders of our country who paved the way for laying the fundamental building blocks to the democracy and the sovereignty we enjoy today. His life points to all of us, and especially the youth amongst us.
Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
The board of Ok Tedi Mining Limited has appointed Mr. Kedi Limbit as the company's Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, effective today, 17th of April 2023. In a media statement, Chairman of the board, Mr. Jeffrey Innes, said that Mr. Limbit was appointed following an international search campaign and a thorough assessment of candidates.
Ok Tedi Mining Limited, a majority state-owned entity that operates an open-pit copper, gold and silver mine located in the Star Mountains of the Western Province in Papua New Guinea, has appointed Kedi Limbit as the company's Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Limbit was originally employed by OTML from 1995 to 2004, starting as a graduate mechanical engineer and working in various roles. He left OTML and worked at various mines in Australia in senior and managerial roles. He returned to OTML in 2015 and has worked in mine maintenance, processing, asset management and operations and community support, and is the current acting CEO. Ok Tedi Board Chairman Jeffrey Innes said, and I quote, "The board looks forward to working with Kedi and the leadership team to ensure the continuing success of Ok Tedi and the satisfaction of all our stakeholders' expectations." End quote. The OTML board acknowledges Mark Thompson, who has performed this role since December 1, 2022. Chairman Jeffrey Innes thanked Mark Thompson for ensuring continuity and stability during this period and appreciate the focus of all OTML and business partner personnel during this transition period to safely deliver on their commitments and to ensure the continuing success of Ok Tedi and its stakeholders. Thompson will resume his position of General Manager, Major Projects. Rocky Iso, National EMTV News.
Minister for International Trade and Investment Richard Maru, whilst thanking Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited for its sponsorship of 100,000 kina towards the very first Papua New Guinea International Special Economic Zone Summit, said KPHL will go beyond being a sponsor to becoming a very important partner in the SEZ journey, which is only less than a month away. Now, during the sponsorship presentation, Minister for International Trade and Investment Richard Maru highlighted that he wants to see the private sector grow, saying that it will only do better if there is cheap and reliable energy. He said if the country wants to move forward and have all the SEZs in the country, there has to be cheap and reliable power. at least something he says the country should be able to achieve. The Minister for International Trade and Investment recently signed a memorandum of agreement with KPHL for them to be the energy solutions provider in all of the SEZs in the country, starting with the PMIZ in Madang. Minister Maru said the country will not have an SEZ in Madang if the lack of power in the province is not fixed. Minister Maru encouraged KPHL and NFA to get the work at PMIZ started by sending a team there to undertake a feasibility study. He urged all stakeholders and those involved to start talking and working together and to start on the design of a new power station and not just talk too much about the developments. Minister Maru added that apart from supplying the PMIZ, all the excess energy will be sold into Madang because of the province has continuous power blackouts. Meanwhile, Minister for International Trade and Investment Richard Maru highlighted that KPHL will be given a slot during the summit to talk more about their vision to connect cheap and reliable energy source throughout the country to all SEZs. And National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. You're watching National EMTV News. Minister for Higher Education and Sports Don Pollier, in a news conference held in Port Moresby today, announced a new board for the National Higher and Technical Education. This board is established under Section 13 of the 2020 Higher Education Act.
According to the Department of Higher Education Research, Science and Technology Secretary, the National Higher Education and Technical Education Board ceased operation for almost 2 years.
The board members can take 2 terms of 3 years, and the previous board terms of office expired, and the new board was in process of appointment, and as you know, we had COVID-19, and then we had the national election, and this all things contributed to the delay of the appointment of the new board.
The new board members are Professor David Kavanagh, Ms. Susan Crew, Dr. Philip Kereme, Ms. Priska Mauve, Dr. Sandeep Arora, Dr. Jeremy Bradshaw, and Mr. James Boo. Minister for Higher Education Don Pollier, when announcing the new board, highlighted that the new board can assist the department by implementing online education, interactive technologies, knowledgeable management, and process improvements to ensure that the quality of education is not compromised across the higher education sector. Minister Pollier then expressed gratitude to the new board.
I'm very pleased, Secretary. I would like to congratulate you, Chairman, and the Deputy Chairman in Sudan in Australia, and the other board members who are here. I'm thankful that the board members in overseas who have traveled here, Jeremy, yourself, and Mr. Boo. I'm thankful you have come long distance to travel this very important meeting, and I'm very happy that our board members in Australia and India also watching in. I'm very happy with this board. Let me express that I have confidence in this board because I have had an opportunity to look through the credentials of all the board members. And I've also had this opportunity where, Chairman, I've been introduced to all the board members here, Secretary.
Dr. Philip Kereme, who have been appointed as the chairperson of the board, gave assurance to the minister that the board will assist the department in achieving its goal.
That we will strictly look at the ministerial view, what the minister thinks, and then we will go back to the white paper to see how we can implement. But
Sharon Engnui, National EMTV News.
Minister for Higher Education and Sports Don Pollier has raised concerns over the increasing number of private institutions being established in the country. He is questioning the quality of the courses offered in those institutions. He made this statement during the announcement of the new National Higher and Technical Education Board today in Port Moresby.
According to Minister Polye, over the last 2 years, approximately 31,000 eligible grade 12 students have been denied access to tertiary education. While the minister is focused on reducing this increasing number to ensuring all students have access to higher education, the quality of the education is also given a top priority.
That's where innovation and quality comes in, but also accessibility to the universities to give them that quality education, but tie to the market, the industry, so that the training that they get is relevant, so they do get a job. Remember our PNC project? There was about 36,000 people that were employed, and all of them were from our friendly neighbors outside of Papua New Guinea. You know why? Because we had not trained our people in our technical colleges and vocational centers, so we had failed.
Private institutions have also been increasing to cater for those students who could not secure a space through the formal education system. However, the quality of the courses offered in those institutions now remain a concern. The minister has tasked the new board of the National Higher Education and Technical Education to ensure courses offered are accredited and meet the national and international standards.
Jobs I have is to make sure we give a space to all these 31,000 that come in to the universities as well as to the colleges and technical institutions. One of the issues that the board will be discussing is to find that accessibility. Or if they can assist within the policy framework that the chairman was referring to, is talking about 3 or 4 policies of the education sector that they will be looking at as to how they can come in within the context of the law, the Education, the General Provisions Act. So we must give accessibility to students that come out of the schools at the education sector. We must give them quality education.
Minister Polye also revealed that his ministry is focused on ensuring that all institutions provide quality higher and technical education to students that will guarantee employment going forward. Sharon Engnui, National EMTV News.
The Fresh Produce Development Agency is urging all districts to work with them in assisting local farmers back in the districts. FPDA CEO Mark Warinu said working in collaboration is the key in addressing food security in the country.
For the food security in the country.
CEO Warinu said FPDA's aim for this year is to work with district development authorities to push for agricultural projects and support local farmers.
We will be opening up consultation and dialogue with the district development authorities, and we want to see them taking ownership of the food development programs as part of addressing the issue of food security in the country, in the districts. We want to really look at how they are addressing their food, their crop development programs.
Mr. Warinu said funding has always been a problem for them in supporting farmers. He said working with DDA can help assist them deliver projects.
And we will look at how we can align our programs with their programs or plans so that we work in partnership and they can contribute, we can also contribute, so that we share the resources and at the same time whatever we invest in the districts, they can take ownership.
Currently, the gap to fill now is on providing good market facilities and opportunities to encourage farmers to produce more. Mr. Warinu said this will encourage the supply chain of food production.
Participation of our communities in the districts so that they come on board and participate in growing their own food crops, firstly for their consumption and secondly for income purposes. And in many ways, it will address the food security issues. And we can sustain ourselves, we can be confident enough, and we can eat our own food.
Cynthia Maku, National EMTV News.
BSP Group CEO Mark Robinson said BSP is addressing its technical issues and improving their operations under the new banking system. He says BSP has made good progress, clearing most of the backlog of the delayed domestic payments, and BSP remains committed to processing all payrolls submitted this week as per normal.
In a media statement released today, the BSP Group CEO stated that BSP is meeting regularly with the Bank of PNG to keep them informed on the progress in addressing the technical issues and delays to payments and services. He assured BSP's clients and customers that their banking account records are secure. While many of the changes to the new BSP banking system are designed to optimize the efficiency of their banking processes, BSP understands that some new features and changes have not been well communicated to customers. BSP acknowledges that many of its customers have been inconvenienced with delays to their banking services receiving payments and interruptions accessing account information. BSP thanks its customers for cooperating with them to repay their recently overdrawn accounts. BSP has not imposed any penalties or interest on these accounts. Mr. Robinson says their dedicated teams continue to work with their global vendor partners around the clock to address the technical issues and delays in processing payments, so their customers can obtain the service levels they deserve. Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
And now looking at the Nest Fund market report, the Kina closed unchanged at $0.2840 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, Yukina was buying $0.2765 $0.4045 Australian dollars, €0.2425 euro, 36.21 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York closed, gold is trading higher, coffee closed higher, cocoa closed higher, copra closed lower, palm oil closed higher, crude oil is trading higher, and copper closed higher. On the stock market, the Dow Jones closed higher, the ASX 200 is trading higher, and the All Ordinaries is trading higher. National EMTV News continues after the break with more stories. Stay with us. You're watching National EMTV News. Sri Lankans in Papua New Guinea celebrated their New Year over the weekend at IBS University premises. The annual celebration saw chief guest of the occasion, Mr. Navin Raju, CEO CPL Group, attended and spoke on never forgetting one's culture and tradition. Also in attendance was Mr. Pandiha Pandara, Honorary Consul for Sri Lanka in Papua New Guinea and President of Sri Lanka Papua New Guinea Friendship Foundation.
Many countries celebrate the New Year on the 1st of January, following the Gregorian calendar, but some countries celebrate their New Year in different periods of the year. Sri Lanka celebrates its New Year on April the 13th and 14th, following the traditional lunisolar calendar. A large majority of ethnic groups in Sri Lanka are Sinhalese and Tamils. Sri Lanka's New Year is mainly a festival for these ethnic groups and therefore officially known as Sinhala and Tamil New Year. The other ethnic groups also join with them in celebrating New Year. Sri Lankan diaspora in Papua New Guinea celebrated its New Year over the weekend at IBS University premises. In his address to the Sri Lankan community, CEO Navin Raju emphasized the importance of identity of people who live overseas, far away from their homes. The CPL CEO said, and I quote, "When we are in overseas, we cannot forget our culture, language and religion. We pass these values to our children. One cannot forget his or her roots. It is everyone's responsibility." End quote. Mr. Raju added that he was born in Fiji and migrated to New Zealand at age 15, but his parents taught him to preserve the cultural identity. Mr. Pandita Bandara, the Honorary Consul for Sri Lanka in Papua New Guinea and President of Sri Lanka PNG Friendship Foundation, in his welcome speech outlined the significance of Sri Lankan New Year. He said Sri Lankans in PNG celebrate their New Year every year. The unique feature of Sinhala and Tamil New Year is all the activities associated with the New Year, which are practiced at the precise time throughout the country as determined by astrologers. For example, lighting the hearth is carried out by all houses at the same time. Consumption of food also at the same time. Rocky Iso, National EMTV News.
And moving to overseas news now, several people are being charged during a statewide crackdown on concealed weapons over the weekend.
Morning, Michael. We saw a blitz of Jack's Law in action over the weekend with around 530 people searched across Queensland in 18 locations, all the way from the Gold Coast up until Townsville. So of those 530 people that were searched, 8 weapons were seized. Those weapons included knuckle dusters, a machete, and also a box-cutting knife was also seized during those times. So there was 15 people that were charged, 26 offences laid against those 15 people all up. At one train station alone, Michael, at Redbank Plains train station, there was 18 people searched there. 4 weapons were found at that one train station. So that's almost 1 in 4 people carrying a weapon. Jack's Law, of course, was passed earlier this month. It's named in honour of Jack Beasley. He was killed when he was stabbed on the Gold Coast in 2019. At this stage, Jack's Law is in place until 2025, although there are calls from the Queensland opposition to extend that and to make it a permanent law.
2 men have been charged over the alleged kidnapping of a man and woman in Sydney.
This arrest, this has been sort of in the making for a while. It was a strike force that's been created from the crime squad, and it's known as Vulture. Now, it's the latest. Police are only just releasing details now regarding this kidnapping that occurred nearly 4 months ago. It's believed on January 18th at around 11:40 a.m. A 26-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman were walking towards a car park in Fairfield in Sydney's southwest when 2 men emerged wearing balaclavas. They then forced the pair into a vehicle before driving off down the Horsley Drive. Now, the pair were then detained for nearly 2 days at an unknown location before they finally managed to escape just after midnight on January 20th. And when they finally escaped, they've discovered they were actually at Swan Bay, which is just a little bit south of Newcastle, but nearly 200 kilometres away from their original abduction location. They then managed to contact a family member who then contacted police. It's believed during the 2 days that they were detained, they were allegedly tortured, with the man suffering a severed finger as well. Following extensive inquiries, 2 men were then later charged and arrested earlier this month, and they've been since charged with a range of offences, including kidnapping and detaining the couple against their will. But this kidnapping is the latest in a string of horrific abductions that have occurred right across the Sydney.
A man from Sydney has been charged for selling defence and security information to spies. Is expected to apply for bail.
Alexander Sergo was arrested at Bondi on Friday following a joint ASIO and counter-foreign interference task force investigation. Federal police allege the 55-year-old compiled national security reports for 2 foreign intelligence officers after they offered him payment. He remains in custody.
Hopes for democracy are fading as rival military factions fight over the nation.
The sound of gunfire and explosions rang out in Khartoum and other parts of the country overnight after a weekend of fighting between rival factions in Sudan's armed forces. Comes after weeks of tension between, on the one hand, the Sudanese army and on the other, a powerful paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Heavy artillery and gun battles raged on Sunday as warplanes belonging to the army struck RSF bases. Now, earlier this year, the country's military leaders began renewed talks to transition from military rule to a civilian-led government, a process that's had a few false starts in recent history. That plan was due to move ahead this month, with representatives of both the Army and RSF working alongside civilians to draft a new democratic constitution. But disagreement between the rival factions began to brew, culminating in this violent battle to control the country. The death toll has continued to climb, with the UN's World Food Programme confirming 3 of those killed are as aid workers. On Sunday, both sides agreed to a temporary ceasefire to allow for humanitarian evacuations. Members of the African Union and Arab League also held emergency meetings while the UN Security Council condemned the violence. Former Prime Minister of Sudan, Abdallah Hamdok, the country's last civilian ruler, has urged an end to the fighting.
I speak to you today as our country faces the danger of separation. When a bullet is fired from a weapon, it cannot tell the difference between the attacker and those being attacked, and the victims are the Sudanese people.
You're watching National EMTV News. Trukai Sports is next. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The round one of the National Rugby League competition yesterday saw the EMK Civic Pride placing up a stunning final half comeback to claim their very first win in the season opener of the competition. The EMK Civic Pride defeated the PRK Gulf ISO 14 points to 8 at the Santos National Football Stadium.
An impression has been set by the pride of the Greater Sepik, where they showcased a stunning second-half hat-trick tries polished through a combination of Joe Frank, Eliza Iwa and EMK hot-favoured speedster John Paul. The opening half saw the PRK Gulf ISO scoring the icebreaker point in the attack through a penalty conversion, succeeded courtesy of 5'8" Justin Yoka. Both sides maintained that pose through to the opening half breaker as the scoreboard read 2 points to 0, where the ISO outfit dominated the match. But when the second half commenced, the Pride fought back relentlessly to claim 3 consecutive eye-opening tries in front of a roaring crowd. The main highlight of the match was witnessed when the Pride claimed their first ever try in their debut of the National Rugby League competition. Meanwhile, in the other match competed yesterday prior to the Pride and ISO attack, saw the NCDC Port Moresby Vipers defeating the Wamga Hagen Eagles 30 points to 10 at the Santos National Football Stadium. Lisa Puni, Trukai Sports.
The SPPNG Hunters could not overcome an impressive Northern Pride outfit over the weekend in their Round 5 clash in Barlow Park in Cairns, Australia. The SPPNG Hunters lost by a 22-point margin at the final siren.
The SPPNG Hunters have registered their second loss for their season 2023 campaign in the Queensland Rugby League Host Plus Cup over the weekend after they lost to a very tough Northern Pride side. The opening half unveiled in favour of the Pride outfit, where they secured 28 effortless points as the Hunters went to the dressing room with 4 points through Roderick Tai. The Pride outfit continued to enjoy back-to-back attacking sets courtesy of some Hunters' ill discipline in the second half, but that did not mean the Hunters backed down on their defences as they maintained it like a brick wall. However, the Pride was too commendable in their dominance as they took the win by a 36-14 pointer in the showdown. Lisa Puni, Trukai Sports.
And Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
You're watching Trukai Sports. Moving to overseas sports now. In NRL, Parramatta has trashed the Bulldogs 30 points to 4 at the Western Sydney Stadium.
The Eels scored 3 tries in 6 minutes during the first half to take a 16-0 lead into the break before adding 2 more tries in the second half to complete the win. Clint Gutherson and Micah Sevo led the way for the Eels. Sevo scored a double on the day. Earlier, Canberra came from behind to beat St George Illawarra 20 points to 14. Hudson Young sealed the win with a brilliant solo effort after winning the ball in a one-on-one strip.
AFL legend Nicky Winmar reflects on his famous stance against racism 30 years ago. A little has changed when it comes to racial abuse from fans in AFL.
Nicky Winmar remembers Victoria Park as a scary place.
Because I asked one of my teammates when I first came out, I said, what's with this cage running out? I said, oh, you'll find out.
He and his teammate Gilbert McAdam copped racial abuse from the crowd all day.
Well, he's hurt holding his hip.
When the siren sounded, Nicky Winmar made a spur-of-the-moment decision that changed the game.
Turned to the crowd and pointed to my skin and said, I'm black and I'm proud.
I remember seeing the picture of Nicky lifting his jumper up and pointing at his skin and just thinking that he was like a black Superman.
But Winmar didn't feel that way.
I walked away from the game for about four or 5 weeks. I didn't want to come back. But like I said, we still got a bit more to do.
It was the beginning of change within the AFL. But 30 years on, players are still being racially abused by fans. Just 2 weeks ago, Jamara Ugle-Hagan replicated Winmar's show of pride and defiance.
From a St Kilda person as well, why would you want to say that? I rang his mum and said I've got his back, I was so proud of him.
In the past month, 4 other Indigenous players have been abused on the field and online.
Sometimes it feels like we take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So, if you look at some schools now, they're teaching Indigenous culture, teaching Indigenous language, but what are they doing dealing with racism?
But Nicky Winmar still has great pride in his stand. Tomorrow he'll be back at Victoria Park for a healing ceremony.
It'll always be part of my life, so I'm just happy to see the young kids who are fighting for it as well. So, enough's enough.
Andre Rubble has won the 2023 Rolex Monte Carlo Masters as the Russian talent was finally rewarded with a Masters title.
To eventually run down his 19-year-old opponent to claim the biggest title of his career. And he did it the hard way. He was down 4 games to 1 in the decider, but worked his way back into the contest to prevail. On his second match point, he served a kicking ace out wide on a beautiful day at Monte Carlo. It was Rublev's 3rd attempt in a Masters final. He failed at the final hurdle in Monte Carlo and also in Cincinnati back in 2021.
That ends Trukai Sports. The Money Plus weather report is next. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
Weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Southern region, Port Moresby and Kerma mostly fine. Daru and Alatau partly cloudy with few showers. Popondetta cloudy periods with some showers and possible thunderstorm. In the Mamase region, Ley cloudy periods with brief showers. Medang, Wewak and Vanimo cloudy with periods of rain and possible thunderstorm. In the New Guinea Islands region, Lorengau and Kavieng cloudy with rain showers and possible thunderstorm. Kokopo and Rabaul, partly cloudy. Kimbe and Buka, partly cloudy with few showers. In the Highlands region, all centres cloudy periods with few showers and possible thunderstorm. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border to Daru to Kerema to Port Moresby to Hood Point to Samarai Islands seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Samarai Islands to eastern and western Milne Bay Islands to Cape Vogel seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Cape Vogel to Ewan Gulf to Finschhafen seas 0.5 to 1 meter. Waters of Finschhafen through Vitis Dampier Straits to CSE Long Islands to Medang seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters north of Medang to Wewak to Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border seas 1 to 2 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands seas 1 to 1.5 meters. Waters of New Island 1 to 2 meters. Waters of New Britain, New Island to Bougainville seas 1 to 1.5 meters. Looking at the ocean forecast, Coral Sea sees slight northwest winds of 10 to 15 knots. Solomon Sea sees slight south to southeast winds of 10 to 15 knots. Bismarck Sea sees slight northwest to westerly winds of 10 to 15 knots. And Pacific Ocean sees slight westerly winds of 10 to 15 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And that wraps up the news, sports and weather for Monday, the 17th of April 2023. From the entire news team, pleasant viewing. Bye for now.
This news program was proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Gold Nuggets.